So this is the November Central Oregon Writers Guild meeting. Welcome all, and those of you online, welcome to you as well. Can somebody online let me know if you can hear me? All right, just put it in the chat. Okay, great, thanks. Oh, well, I've got 3 yeses and 1 not very well. Arlene, turn your sound up. I think is the maybe. Okay. So I'm Mike Cooper. I'm the president of Central Oregon Writers Guild. We have a few of our board members in the room here. We have Mary Krakow, she is our featured reader coordinator and does all kinds of other stuff. We have Denise. Denise admits I practiced that. I've learned how to do that in working in restaurants. I always talk to people when they have their mouth. We have Amanda here. I don't know if we have any other board members today. They're out and about. So I'm going to go quickly over events, do a quick screen share, and that's working. On the left side of our landing page, we have the Central Oregon Writers Guild event. So on the left side, you'll see Cherie Kephart there, who is with us as she was here. She was here. She's going to be our presenter this evening. She's also doing a workshop on Saturday, and I think it just sold out.
I was just signing up for it.
You're signing up.
Oh,
you're going to be the sold out.
Okay.
Okay.
I gotta get the card.
Okay, hurry, yeah.
I know.
Somebody online's probably screaming to get on. So she'll be talking about memoir tonight and Saturday. Our next meeting is Tuesday, December 9th, and that's our holiday potluck and member reading. And Mary, we have members signed up to read.
We do, but we need some more. So
okay.
I will be spreading this around.
I'm seeing a hand raised in the back here. So what we do on that night is bring some food, bring a little something. You can make it, you can buy it. You don't have to bring enough for 50 people, just a little plate of something. And we'll put some food out. Come on in. We'll put some food out, and there are more chairs over here too, by the way, folks, if you want to grab it. We don't have enough here. We'll put some food out. We'll do some member reading, and we'll interact with each other, which is what the Writers Guild is all about. This is a community organization. I've said it several times. Writing is a very solitary practice, and we can get kind of caught up in our own heads, and we can go through some levels of self-defeating and all kinds of things. But we're all doing that, and it's nice to be able to hang out with people and talk with people who are doing it as well. It gives us inspiration. It gives us insight into different practices, different ways to look at things. Helps. I've found that community and that interaction is the best way. If you're interested in a critique group or forming a writing group, that's the best way to make it happen. Is to find people that that think like you do and want to accomplish the same thing. So that's what that's about. In January, this library is going to shut down. So for the first 6 months of January, we have secured a room at Cascades Hall at Central Oregon Community College. Okay, there will be plenty of parking up there. It's a nice big room, and we will be made welcome there. So that's where we're going to move. I'll definitely send that information out in the map and so on and so forth, how to get there. Probably mid 2026, we'll move into the new library on the east side, and then mid 2027, this will reopen, and we'll try and move ourselves back here. Okay, so that's the traveling Writers Guild show. But I'll keep you posted where we are, and we will continue to do Zoom Zoom presentations as well. The right side of the page shows other writing events in Central Oregon. So we're currently doing quiet writing on Tuesday mornings here upstairs at the Bend Downtown Library. Sisters Library is going to open in December, and Redmond Library is going to open in December for quiet writing there. COCC, when we stop here, COCC will pick up in January, and they'll have that same time slot, Tuesdays, 9:30 to 1, and that'll be at the library at COCC. So non-students can park for free at the library at COCC. Otherwise, the rest of the campus is parking passes. So that's what's going to happen. Here we are. Here's Cherie tonight. Tomorrow night, Krena has her monthly poetry play shop. We've got the Central Oregon Anthology launch and reading is this Thursday at roundabout at 6:30. If you want to go, you can either buy a ticket or, here's a better idea, buy a book. And you can go online, you can just click this link right here, and you can purchase one of the anthologies and then just go to the event there. And we'll have, how many readers? 9 readers there. And then if you want to buy books, they'll have books. Roundabout Books has the anthologies for sale. If you're not going to go to Roundabout on Thursday, feel free to go at some other time and go get that book. I will bring books next month. So we'll have books available at the member reading. I'll have anthologies. I'll have actually the last 3 years anthologies available for purchase here. And it is also available on that one thing, Amazon. Okay. Other author events listed in here. There's Cherie's workshop. We have Irene and I run a online writing salon, which happens this Saturday. Feel free to just click on that and check that out. Lone Pine does poetry night that same night. Some more author stuff. Danny Nichols is doing a food writing class at COCC. Third Thursday in Bend at the Commons and in Redmond at the SBC Hotel. More authors, and here's an event here at the library on December 21st. Little lull for Thanksgiving there. Danny's doing another event there. More author readings, potluck. More and more stuff here. Grace Bielecki, who talked to us a couple of months ago, is doing an online Zoom class through the library here in December. Crane is sponsoring this 22nd annual poetic journey at Scale House. So it's good for us to get out in the world and interact with other authors and go to writer things. It's like I said, it's inspirational. I'm back to that idea of us being introverted, quiet, solitary beings. I also always look at these events selfishly. I say, what can I get from that, right? How can I be a better writer because of this, right? Even if I'm doing workshopping and critique, just talking to my students at school about that. When you're doing critical analysis and critique and workshop of other people's work, you say, how can I apply this to my own work, right? That happens to me all the time. So it opens our mind, it gives us more opportunity. So it's useful to get into the community, into the writing community. And that's what this organization is all about. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to let any questions about anything, or anybody have any cool announcements about stuff?
I'm a finalist in the Wild Atlantic Writers Awards.
Wow.
In Ireland.
Ooh.
So I can get a 10% discount on Ireland writing retreats.
Nice.
So that's what I'm thinking about doing next
Yeah, in the summer.
year. I have one in the summer and I have one in the fall. I got figured.
Yeah, that's great. All right.
Next, I think there's November 19th. That's a Thursday. No, Wednesday. November 19th, Wednesday. I am giving a talk with an artist featuring my prose and poetry and her art at Worthy Brewing
Okay.
for Worthy Garden Club at 6 o'clock. It's called Refugia of the Blue Mountains. So it's a collaboration of prose poetry and art.
Send that to me. I'll put it on.
I'll take this.
What else?
There's a holiday craft show at, on Saturday
All right.
at Westside Church on Shepherd Park Road, 93 all day.
That sounds good. You're working. Yeah. All right. Okay. Anybody write anything today? How many
Yes.
of you wrote today? Good for you. All right. Okay. Mary Krakow, as I mentioned, is our featured reader coordinator. She's going to announce our featured reader for the evening. And I think I'm done with the screen, right?
Before I announce the featured reader. We do have 2 more slots for the December reading. So if you're interested in reading our holiday potluck, I'll pass this. You should start on that. Just sign your name and contact information so that I can contact you. Tonight's featured reader. Janet North is a retired IT professional who moved to Bend, Oregon in 2018. A master gardener since 2019, she now spends her time cultivating both her garden and her writing. When Janet retired in 2015, she began reflecting on her years in the 1970s, living in a utopia turned cult, an experience that inspired her memoir. For 8 years, she lived in Synanon, the first ever drug rehabilitation community, as a lifestyler, a non-substance abuser drawn to the promise of communal living. A true believer, Janet carefully navigated Synanon's transformation from a respected recovery organization into a violent, dangerous cult. Her upcoming memoir, Tender Loving Care, Escaping from One of the Most Violent Cults in the World, follows her journey from devoted insider to a woman fighting her way out of psychological captivity. Janet is currently at work on a second memoir about confronting racism while raising her mixed race son. Please welcome Janet North.
I have to get set up, so hold on a second. And props. There's not enough room for my prop, so.
Do you want me to stand and hold some props?
Oh, my bag. The chair, perfect. Nice to have some of things outside the box. Right?
Prop chair.
Okay, so. Can y'all hear me okay? All right, so 50 years ago, I shaved my head along with all the women in my community. I had no idea it was in a cult. Should have been a tip-off. The dress over there is my wedding dress from 1972, when I was married in a ceremony with 75 couples. And I can't believe my waist was that tiny, but it was. My memoir, Tender Loving Care, Escaping One of the Most Violent Cults, changing the name to In America instead of the World, will be available for purchase or pre-order in late December. And I have a list over there. If after you hear this, you might be interested in reading it, just add your name and email address and I'll get in touch with you. During the reading, you'll hear unfamiliar words, since this is chapter 16 of my memoir. My best friend Loretta and I are 5 months pregnant. Fabian is her husband. My husband Bobby was out of town. Chuck Diedrich is the leader of the cult. You'll hear words like the game and the wire. I would compare our weekly games to therapy sessions without the therapist. Or as my friend describes them, a particularly ferocious form of encounter groups that were popular in the 1960s. The Wire was an in-house radio station broadcast through all of our compounds. Lifestylers in squares were people like me who had moved into Synanon for the communal lifestyle. My friends Loretta and Fabian were ex-heroin addicts who would come to Synanon to kick drugs. One more note, like all good cults, Synanon used humiliation to keep people in line. Until this night, when a man broke a rule, he shaved his head to demonstrate humility. When a woman broke a rule, she wore a nylon stocking cap on her head for 2 weeks in the same demonstration of humility. We begin. Chapter 16, Bald and Pregnant. February 1975, Marshall, California. 5 months into my pregnancy, I was looking forward to scheduling my artistic maternity photo session. Loretta, Fabian, and I were hanging out in the dining room after dinner, half listening to a game being broadcast over the wire. It had been a warm winter day, but as dark descended, so did the temperature. We were cozy inside. Loretta had finally stopped throwing up after every meal. Her morning sickness hadn't confined itself to breakfast. Now that she could finally enjoy dinner, they savored relaxing on non-game nights. One table over, a woman shrieked, "Rebecca just shaved her head." The chatter in the room diminished. Did I hear her correctly? I turned to her. "What are you talking about?" "Weren't you paying attention?" the shrieker asked me credulously. I'd learned to tune out the constant noise of the wire. Rebecca copped out to selling a camera that belonged to Synanon, and she kept the money. Rebecca was a lifestyler I had known in Oakland and was now in the in crowd, her circle of friends being the directors. She worked in the graphics department, but why would she steal a camera? She was a square getting $50 a month, double my $5 a week. A guy chimed in. "Yeah, Chuck called in the game and told her, if you were a man, we would shave your head for stealing." My jaw dropped. Chuck wants a woman to shave her head? What the hell? The guy stuttered as he spoke. I heard him say, "Well, Rebecca, you're always talking about women's equality. Why don't you shave your head? Now that's equality." The guy paused, wrinkling his nose, and she did. My body stilled as I began listening intently to the wire. The game sounded chaotic, not the usual back and forth accusations and defenses mixed in with navel gazing. Lori, Rebecca's best friend, proclaimed, "I'll support you, I'll shave mine too," followed by choruses of "me too." A woman burst into our dining room, her long dark hair frizzy from the evening dew. "Women are shaving their heads here too." She ran back outside. An invisible current swept through the room. Loretta, Fabian, and I, and soon everyone, ran across the property to the community room to watch. Women's eyes were wide and glowing as they jostled each other to the front of the line to shave their heads. "Let's support Rebecca. Shave mine. Here. I'll do yours." And in the background, the buzz of clippers. Massive piles of hair, blonde, brunette, curly, straight, long, short, spread across the floors. One by one, women swarmed in a wild frenzy, clippers buzzing as they shaved their heads. Forgot my sound effect. Recoiling as I watched the women crowding in, begging for the clippers to shear their locks, I turned to Loretta. "What the fuck?" I wanted to look away, but I couldn't, like watching a car roll over on the freeway and burst into flames. Yet these women, now men, were grins from ear to ear, hugging and laughing, rubbing each other's fuzzy heads, jumping with glee. They passed the clippers from hand to hand as they buzz cut each other's heads. Backing away from the chaos, I searched for Loretta. She and Fabian had retreated to the mezzanine, their eyes flat, arms crossed, observing the melee, which I never pronounced right. Melee. Chaos. I turned my head toward the buzzing clippers, drawn to the exuberance and energy. My friends, my community. I felt like the peace marchers I'd marched in at UC Berkeley, when we were all of one mind, one intent, shouting, "Peace now." Tonight we are shouting, "Equality now." I enveloped myself in the fervor, the communal joy, the same zeal I felt when I moved into Synanon 4 years earlier. Passion and friendship were my addiction. Excitement surged through me, and I shouted, "Shave mine." I can still feel the vibration of the clippers across my scalp and hear the buzz as I watch my long curls fall to the floor, adding to the heat. I leaped to my feet and embraced the first shorn woman I saw. We jumped up and down in circles. I ran my hands across my buzz cut, feeling a profound sense of freedom. Then I looked up at Loretta. Her exquisite blonde hair was still down to her waist, shining like sunlight as she stood deadpan, her arms crossed over her protruding belly. I felt a momentary pang of remorse. What have I just done? Why aren't I standing there with my best friend? Banishing that thought, I turned back to the whooping crowd. I don't know if my euphoria was a feeling of equality or a desire to fit in, but I suspect the latter. Did I want to belong or didn't I? It wasn't a conscious decision, but a gut level feeling that something important was happening and I wanted to be part of it. I rubbed my hand through my hair, feeling only soft fuzz. It feels so good. Oops. It's a small podium here. Bobby, my husband, was in Oakland and wouldn't see my new hairdo or lack thereof for a few days. I'm sure he would have joined in. He would have held the clippers that shaved my head while lamenting, "Janet, your beautiful hair." He was down to halfway down my back at that point. The next day, I looked in the mirror, an alien staring back at me. What did I do? Then the joy, camaraderie, and sense of power washed over me. If men can shave their heads, so can I. I grinned at my reflection. Holding my bald head high, I walked to the dining room to join my shorn sisters. I grinned at my reflection. Oops, sorry, I said that. The grins and hugs from the night before hadn't stopped. Laughing, giggling. I could hardly recognize anyone. By now, most of us, men and women alike, wore overalls as our daily attire, and I couldn't tell the men from the women. Then I realized the women had shorter hair, maybe a quarter of an inch. I looked past the buzz cuts and recognized my friends. Some women still look beautiful, some look worse, but we were all beaming in our stance of equality, rubbing each other's heads and laughing at our audacity. That's all we talked about during breakfast. Ron called into the game and told Lori, "You're not doing this, are you? Well, I'd like to get into the game and talk to you before you turn yourself into an ugly pig." Laughter. That's why I shaved my hand. My and a woman sniggered. We have as much right to look like an ugly pig as men do. 2 days later, I watched Fabian shave Loretta's head. Her blue eyes were dead. Loretta spoke in a monotone. Fabian said I'd have to shave my head if we want to stay here, and he's right. Who's left with any hair? She ran her fingers through her hair that wasn't there. I have to stay. We're having a baby. I don't know if we can make it outside. I wasn't sure if they could either. Poor indoctrination echoed in games and over the wire. Once a junkie, always a junkie. You can only be clean if you stay. It's only hair, I said, hugging her. It's beautiful. She did. She cut it to an inch, short enough to be acceptable, her thick golden hair glowing like a halo, but her blue eyes no longer sparkled. Within days, nearly every woman in the cinema is showing her hair. We got me.
You're in Nebraska, you'd want that. That is probably the biggest commitment we've had as a featured reader to actually shave your head for the. One more round of applause for Janet. Narrative, fun and interesting, but that underlying current of the community and addiction beneath that comes through really beautifully done. Okay, so we have Cherie Kephart, who's going to talk to us, who's going to give us the secret of writing a memoir.
Should have heard before.
This is it. Hopefully it's just like one quick sentence. Memoir is more than just a personal story, it's craft, the secret to writing one lies and how you shape your life experiences into compelling narrative. How do you do this effectively? That's what she's going to explore with us tonight. Cherie is a writing facilitator, editor, and award-winning author, best known for her inspiring memoir, A Few Minor Adjustments, on sale now at the front of the room, which Publishers Weekly called A Story of Gut-Wrenching Determination and Perseverance. She's a two-time winner of the San Diego Memoir Showcase and teaches at several writers' conferences and retreats. And without further ado, Cherie Kephart.
Do you want me, we're not using this?
It's not on, yeah. You speak pretty loud, huh? This is the microphone for the folks at home.
Okay. Can I move over here? Can I still see me?
You can, yeah. So
Still dance?
do you want to be kind of in the middle? Because I can.
Great.
Your way.
That'd be great. Okay. Fantastic.
Yeah.
I don't want to stand behind me.
All right.
So thank you, Mike, for having me, and thank you everyone for being here tonight. I'm excited to be here. And I am disappointed to tell you that I'm not gonna talk about the secret of writing memoir today. Right, I'm disappointed. I flew all the way up here from San Diego. How do you think I feel? So the reason I say that is because there is not one secret to writing a memoir. There are many, 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 many. And actually, I don't think there are any secrets. I think they're just things we don't know. So when I started to write my memoir, I thought I was a writer, and I was a writer. Scientific technical writing, poetry writing, essay writing, academic writing, grant writing, all kinds of writing. But I had never written a memoir. Well, I'm gonna tell you a little bit about my story. So when I was 32 years old, I was taking a shower and I had a really intense pain in my neck. I fell to the floor, crawled wet and naked to the phone, and called for help. That was the start of my long, arduous journey with a mysterious illness. Within a year, I had more than 25 disparate symptoms, including a heart rate that went up to 185 beats per minute while resting. I went from doctor to doctor, and no one had any answers. And after 7 years of searching for answers, I was bedridden, hallucinating, and being spoon-fed to stay alive. The worst part, I was dying, and no one knew why. Don't worry, it's got a great ending. Spoiler alert if you're reading my book, I did survive. I love humor. It's one of the things that got me through all of the darkest parts of my life. So, why did I tell you my story? Well, I set out to write a memoir because I couldn't find a book that would inspire me about what I went through. There were so many great books out in the world about someone surviving cancer or abuse or all kinds of things, but no one being undiagnosed, no one being an outcast in the sick community. Even the sick people were like, I don't know what to do with you. And so they sent me home to die. So I decided I wasn't going to accept that. And I started to find ways to heal without having a diagnosis. And I wanted to inspire and help other people who were in my situation. And so I wrote the book I wanted to read. I didn't want anybody else to feel as lost, alone, and afraid how I felt. So I did it. I did it in hospital rooms, in my bed, in IV rooms, and I wrote and wrote and wrote. Well, my first draft, I was so excited because when you write a draft, who's written a draft, right? It's a huge accomplishment, okay? So I set it aside, as a good writer does, because I knew to get perspective, even as sick as I was. And I set it aside, and about 8 or 9 months later, I read it. It was the darkest, most depressing thing I've ever read. And I thought, no one's gonna want to read this. So I kind of decided to go down to the beach, and I burned my book. Now, I do not advocate burning books, don't worry, that's not a thing, but I wanted to release myself from it. So I did. And then everybody kept asking me, what happened with your book? What's going on with your book? And I said, oh, I burned it, and everybody thought I was a little crazy. And finally, one day I had lunch with a friend of mine, and about a year later, and he goes, what's going on with your book? And I told him. And he goes, have you read the book, Larry's Kidney? And I said, no. And he goes, okay. And then that was it. All right, he's crazier than me. And then 2 days later, Larry's Kidney, the book, not the actual kidney, showed up at my doorstep. And it was also from a journalist, a writer, his name is Daniel Rose. And the subtitle I'm paraphrasing is something like, How I Helped My Black Sheep Cousin Find a Black Market Kidney in China. So his cousin was dying and needed help, and he was on dialysis for 20 years and waiting for a kidney. So he took him to China and he wrote the story. Now, he realized the book needed some humor because it's a dark, controversial topic. So that taught me something right there. I needed to go back and write my book with some humor, with some joy and lightness, because it was all one team. So I went back and wrote my book. And that was one of the biggest lessons I ever learned. So the point of telling you that story is from then on, I started going to conferences and finding mentors and editors and learning the craft of memoir. And I stumbled a lot. And it took me a long time to write that book and all the memoir pieces that I've been grateful to write and honored to present all kinds of places. So tonight, I want to give you all of the things that I wish I would have known at the beginning, so you don't have to go into the hard way like that. So you don't have to go burn your book, you don't have to do all of that, okay? I mean, you can, but just don't tell anybody. Okay, so. Okay, this is a little my makeshift. I had to travel, so I couldn't really bring what I wanted to bring, so I can make this. So everything I do has a reason, and some of you took one of my courses at the Writers Conference. Who has met me before, and thank you for being here again. It's great to see you, and for everyone else, nice to meet you. Okay, so I like to have fun. I think it's a joy to be a writer, right? Yes? Yes. You're all here on a Tuesday night because you want to. So, the secret of writing memoirs. So like I said, there's not one, there's like many, many. But I picked some of the top 10 that I think are the most important. I'm also a developmental editor and writing coach. And I read memoir after memoir after memoir. And I see the same things over and over again. So these are some of my top things that I want to impart tonight. Okay? So, we're gonna play a little game. And there are 10, plus the bonus is last. So I want you guys to pick a number. Anybody shout out a number, I'm gonna start with that one. Instead of going in order, which is very boring. 7. 7, great, what was your name?
Gemma.
Jenna takes 7. Okay, I don't even know what they are, so we can find out. Hope you stay up. Number 7. So, secret number 1, or no longer a secret, is memoir is all about transformation, okay? Well, actually, and I'm gonna say this too, everything I'm gonna talk about tonight is true with fiction writing too, okay? So it's all about transformation. So we know our characters are meant to change by the end of the book, right? So you are the main character of your story, you're meant to change. So many of us think that we read a book or watch a movie to kind of pull back from the world or escape. But actually, we want to be transformed. The best stories are those when we walk away and we go, oh my gosh, and you want to tell someone about it. And you felt something, right? That's memoir. That is showing a transformation. So when we start, the question is, who am I at the beginning of this book or this story? And who am I at the end? That is the question readers want to know. Who are you in the beginning? Like Janet, your story when you started, and who are you at the end, right? There's a clear arc, like even in that story, which was beautiful. So it's all about that transformation and seeing that. And guess what? When you, as a writer, are writing memoir, you're transforming too. That's the beauty. How many of you have written a piece and you feel different at the end, right? You feel like you've healed and grown. So the beauty is, remember, writing is all about transformation. The characters must change, the reader is going to change, and you as the author get to change too. So keep that in mind. What is the transformation? Okay? And I'm going to answer questions at the end. New number, someone different. 5. What's number 5? I'm curious. 5. I did at the top. Can anybody see that? Sorry, I couldn't make it much bigger. Memoirs are not a perfect example of you. So number 5. So what do I mean by that? Memoirs are not a perfect example of you. So we are not writing about our perfect selves. Does anybody want to watch a movie or read a book about someone who's like, oh, I've got it all together. I've got money, I've got relationships, and everything's fine. It's kind of a boring story, right? And not realistic either. So we read to connect. We read memoir to really connect with our humanity. We bridge the gaps in our humanity. We get to see the fears, the shame, the embarrassment, the worries, the mistakes that we make. And then other people can see that. And guess what? Janet, right? Really? I have never lived in a cult. But because of your bravery to put out all the hardships and the mistakes and the whatever happened, I get to learn those lessons. And I get to go along with you. And so when we're willing to show the worst parts of ourselves, that's when the gain is for the reader, because they really get to go on that journey with you. So we don't want a perfect example of ourselves. And think about this. A turtle only travels when they stick their neck out. A turtle can't go with the head in its shell, right? So you have to be vulnerable. You have to be willing to stick your neck out and talk about the things that are hard to talk about. We don't want surface, we want truth, and we want be able to go deep. Okay? The best memoirists show their contradictions, their flaws, and their humanities. So memoir thrives on suggestion, not saturation. You don't need to tell every detail of your pain for readers to feel it. So that's one of the dangers. We have to let imagery and gesture and subtlety carry the weight. You got to trust your reader. We got to be careful not to overshare in memoir, okay? But we want it to be varied, but we want, again, not to be a perfect example of who we are. We're not trying to show we're this great person. We're showing the reality, okay? How about another number? 8. 8. My little balance, action, and emotion. Number 8. I like this. This is one of my favorites. So the best memoirs and best fiction books and best stories balance action and emotion. So what that means is if we have something that talks all about emotions and internal, then it's really heavy in one area. Now, if we have something that's just action, 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 it doesn't have any depth and substance, okay? So the best stories, best movies and books balance these, right? So now when you read or when you watch movies or TV, you're gonna notice this, and it's so fascinating. So I'm gonna give you examples of a movie, because I'm not sure everybody's read the same books, but I think people will at least understand this movie analogy, okay? So there are movies like Fast and Furious, right? I have not seen it, but my guess is it's all about cars and fast. Has anybody seen that movie? Oh, okay, great. So am I right? It's like it's Fast and Furious. It's a lot of car chasing and action, right? Not a lot of depth and emotion. And then there's movies on the other spectrum, which are like Steel Magnolias or Terms of Endearment, right? Very emotional, very deep. Not a lot of action going on. I mean, it's beautiful, right? But they're really on this ends of the spectrum. So then there's books and movies that come in the middle, that balance. Movies like E.T., where there is a lot of action in that movie, and there's a lot of deep emotion. Who has not seen E.T.? Okay, good. You've all seen it. It's just, you have not?
What is it?
E.T.
E.T. Oh, gosh, forever.
It's
Like, oh my gosh.
yeah, you know, I couldn't think of a brilliant contemporary,
Yeah.
but it's such a sweet movie, and it builds. The action builds. It doesn't start off all crazy. It starts off sweet with 2 brothers and a little family, and then it builds and builds and builds. So you are feeling the action and emotion tied in the whole way. So great memoirs and great fiction balance action and emotion. Now, of course, sometimes you're gonna have more emotion, and sometimes you're gonna have a little bit more action, and that's okay. But you really don't want to be too far on either end of the spectrum. Okay, another number, please.
1.
1. It should have been where we started, but we did not. Don't tell your readers what you want them to know. What do I mean by that? That's kind of crazy, right? Let me let you stew on that for a second while I take a drink of water. It's very dry up here. Okay, this is the biggest single mistake I see writers make. They tell them what they want the reader to know. So why is that a mistake? Well, readers don't want to be told. We don't want to be told. We want to be shown. It's not just the show and tell, it's the experience. We want to go on the journey with the author of what they went through. If we are telling them, it's just like, okay, but if we're showing them, we get to experience it. So the biggest mistake you can make is telling the reader, showing them, and then telling them again, I've seen this. Have anybody seen this or know what I'm talking about, Mike? Yeah? So if you tell them, you don't want to show them. And if you show them, you don't want to tell them. You have to decide which is when to tell and when to show, but you certainly don't want to tell, show, and tell. So we don't want to tell them, we want to show them. Now, there are moments where you need to tell. For instance, if you're going to Prague right? And then nothing happens going to Prague. You say, I went to Prague, or I flew to Prague. I flew to Prague. 4 words, we traveled all the way across the world. That's fantastic. But then when you're in Prague, something happens, and then you focus on the showing there, okay? So you have to balance showing and telling, but mainly in memoir, we want to show. We really want to show them and not tell them what we think we want them to know. We want the reader to see exactly what happened to us in our stories without us censoring it, without showing the author's feet. Because what you're doing is when you're trying to tell them things and point them in certain directions, you're trying to control as opposed to this is what happened and letting them arrive at their conclusions. Okay, another number. Nobody? 4. Thank you, 4. Keep us in the moment. Oh boy. Yes. Well, this is a big one. So many times I see this. So have you ever read a book, or especially a memoir, when people are like, well, little did I know at the time, or later I learned. Well, what that does is, again, shows the author's feet. So you of today are injecting your perspective, your emotions, your wisdom into those moments. There's a place and time for that information sprinkled throughout your memoir. But when you're showing scenes, if you're injecting that perspective, you're not authentically telling the story when it happened, right? Like when I collapsed in that shower, I wasn't thinking, well, later on, I realized that no, bring me to the shower. Bring me to who I was at that time. So when you're writing memoir, if you're writing about your 10-year-old self, you need to put yourself back into that 10-year-old self and write as best as you can from the wisdom, the information, and who you were at the time. What clothes you wore, what your preferences were, perspective, everything. Not who you are now. Very different. And in your memoir, you have different timelines. So you have to pay attention to those two. So you have to stay in that moment. Keep us in that moment. Otherwise, we feel gypped, and we feel like the author is just, again, leading us along. All look very pensive.
In the moment.
You're in the moment, right? Okay, another number. 2. Yes. I love this one. The best memoirs read like fiction. So the craziest thing about this is, yes, memoirs about the truth. Absolutely. Tell the truth, the whole truth and the truth. I'm not going to go there. Tell the truth. However, the way we tell memoir makes a big difference, okay? Now, fiction is all about technique and craft, right? So is memoir. So is memoir. Have you ever read someone's story and it's like, well, and then this happened and this happened and this happened, or someone tells you a story, well, I went to the grocery store, and you're just like, what? Yeah. We want to adopt the fiction techniques for memoir. I'm going to talk about a few of those. But ironically, the best fiction books read like memoir. So it's the opposite. So what we want is, memoir has the truth, but we need the craft of storytelling. Fiction has the craft of the storytelling, but they need the believability and the truth. So it feels like the emotions and the human experience is real. And that makes us love fiction, because we feel grounded and connected to our characters in the story, right? So when you're writing memoir, you want to make sure you use fiction techniques. And when you're writing fiction, you want to make sure you're using human experience and emotions like you would in a real story. Okay? Let's see if there's anything else. Oh yeah, so let's talk about some of those real quick. So you treat your story, your memoir, like the craft. So you want to have scenes instead of summaries. You want to have dialogue instead of paraphrasing. You want to have sensory detail to ground the emotion. You also want to show like what the camera would see if it was a movie. A lot of people just have people in conversation in memoir, but we can't see them. It's called talking heads. We can't visualize anything. You have to give us those details. So think, what would the camera see? Can you repeat those again? Yeah, absolutely. And I can give you this, there's a sign up sheet at the end. I can send you my presentation at the end. I like going old school because I think it's fun and we get to interact more instead of looking at slides. But yes, I can absolutely do that. Pacing. We have to balance again, action and emotion and reflection and stillness. We got to anchor us in time and space. A lot of memoirs, like it's all over the place. I don't know when you are, I don't know where you are. We have to manage that well and have transitions between those different times and spaces. And these are all very subtle and it's very important. So if you study the craft of fiction, you will write a better memoir. I was in a writing group for years writing my memoir, and I got selected to be in this group with very accomplished writers, and I was the newbie in the group, an experienced writer, but not a memoir. Horror writer, comedic satire writer, a romance writer, historical fiction writer, screenplay writer, nonfiction person, and then there's me writing memoir. The best advice I got was from these people writing in other genres, because they knew how to write humor and horror and romance and all the things I needed to learn. So yes, memoirs are great and surround yourself with them, but find other people who are great at their craft and help learn what they do well in their kind of writing, because that will help you in yours. The last one of those is tension. We want to know what is pulling the reader forward to keep going. That's important. Because if we don't have a reason to keep reading, we're going to put the book down, right? That's one of the things as a writer, to get the person to turn the page, right? Get the reader to turn the page. Yeah. Yes. Instead of summaries. Yeah. And again, I can send you guys. Oh, yeah, for sure. And I'll have time for questions at the end, and you've got me for whatever you need. Okay. Another number, please.
6.
I think 6 was first. We're going with 6. Like any good guest, arrive late and leave early. I'm going to let you ponder that for a moment and see if you can figure out what I mean by that.
Don't start out with your first 5 years of life. They're not really relevant to the story you want to tell.
What's your name?
Jameson.
Jameson. Would you like to come teach? I would love that. Yes, so the best books in general, and the best memoirs especially, come late and leave early. So basically what I'm saying is start as far along in your story as possible and leave as soon as possible. So I'm going to talk about that for a minute. So, okay, so in my book, for example, because I don't know what everybody's read, my book, page 1, starts with me in the shower. I'm in the shower and I'm lathering, and then by the end of the first page, I'm on the floor. And now you're in the journey. I only gave you 2 paragraphs. You don't know who I am, where I'm from. You don't know anything really about me. But what I created was in media res, in the action. This is the furthest along I thought I could start my story, right? Now, I go through moments of flashback when I'm in the hospital or I'm bedridden, and I think back because I'm going through a journey trying to figure out why I'm sick and how not to die. Those were my goals. They were very good goals, I thought at the time. And the reader's going along with me, so I'm taking them on that journey, but they didn't need to know all my, like you said, Jameson, they didn't need to know all that other stuff. The relevant details will unfold. If you backload everything at the beginning, people are going to get bored and care. Think of the best person in the world to you, the most famous person that you adore. Think of someone right now. Could be anybody. Okay. Think of that person. Do you want to know every single detail about their life? Probably not. You want to read a book about them, but you don't want to know it all. You want to know the relevant highlights, the beauty, the nuggets, right? So we focus on that. We start as late as we can with that action, and we end soon as the transformation happens, and soon as the glimmer and the change happens. And we leave, let them wanting more, as opposed to, have you ever read a book and you're like, it's not over? I thought it was ended. If you ever, or a movie, you're like, but I thought it should have stopped back there. You know, so we have a risk of going too short, but you want to make sure the transformation is complete. It's complete. Now, the trick with memoir is, guess what? We're still alive. Your story keeps going. So my story ended when I found out some big epiphanies and had some huge breakthroughs within myself. And I'm not going to give anything away if you're going to read it. You can ask me afterwards for secrets. But here's the thing. People are like, well, what happened? And people are like, I want to know more. I want to know more. It was so compelling. But I'm like, well, there was 10 more years of stuff that happened to me, intense, crazy stuff. But the book ended, it was enough. Like you just have to find a spot that works for your story. So come late as you can, leave early, but then anything relevant that you think was important, you can put in and unfold in the story. Remember, it's our life. Everything's important to us. Everything's important to our friends and family, but not everything's important for a story, okay? All right. Someone had said 3. Do we still want 3? Do we change our minds? 3. Oops, oh no, one fell. I don't have a van of white over here to help me. Okay. This is what I'm going to talk about on Saturday. Memoir is a slice of life, not an autobiography. And I'm realizing for the people at home, I keep moving in and out. Sorry about that. Okay, so that's just kind of what I was saying. Memoir is a slice of life. It is not your whole life. It is not your whole story. People read my book and often say, oh my God, people who know me especially, you know, that doesn't seem fully like you. Like it's, you know, all this stuff. They know so much more about me. I was a marathon runner, beach volleyball player. I've been to 58 countries. I lived in 4 continents. I'm a medical anthropologist. You know, I like to bake sourdough, you know, all the things, right? I'm a cat lover. None of that's in there. I went to Venice High where Greece was filmed. Like, I mean, there's tons of cool things about all of us, right? That's not necessarily cool. That doesn't belong in my book. What my book is about is I got ill with a mysterious illness. How did I get out of that? How that is my journey. That is that slice. If I want to write another slice, I write another book or have another story. But this is that slice. So you have to focus on one aspect of your life. One aspect, and it has to have a story arc. It has to be one story. Now, it can have sub-stories. It can have more themes underneath it, but there's one primary one. And everything you write underneath it has to support this one story, okay? One story. So you have to stay focused on your story. And it's very tempting to add in, well, this was a really crazy, interesting thing that happened in my life. I just want to fit it in, right? Has anybody done that? This is fun. Yeah. I did it. And then I was like, yeah. So here's a question I have for you. And I think I mentioned this at the conference. How do you know when to keep something in or take it out, right? Well, you can answer one question. And this is good for fiction. Does it serve the story or does it serve my ego? It's crazy how many times it serves the ego. So editors will help you. So I have an editor and I have my book all polished and ready to go. I worked 7 years on this thing and I had so many editors. And, well, again, I was trying not to die. So, you know, the writing was a little slow. However, I got to the point where I just was so excited. My book was done, but I had met this wonderful memoir coach person and I was like, she's amazing. I want her to take one look at my book to make sure before it gets out there, right? So she looked at it and she comes back to me and she says, this is fantastic. And I said, oh, great. Whew. She goes, the first 2/3 are amazing. I said, great. The last third is more like 2 more thirds. I thought, okay, I'm not a mathematician, but I'm pretty sure that doesn't make sense, right? So what she was saying is the last third was way too much. It was like 2 more thirds. So she challenged me to cut out 14 polished chapters of my memoir right before publication. And I cried. And I was like, as many people do, you want to throw your book out the window and just never write again. How many people have felt that? Right. So I was like, okay. So she says, here's what I want you to do. This was the most brilliant advice. She says, take those chapters, and they're very important to you, and I get it, and they're very important to your life, and they're beautiful, she's loved them. But she says, I want you to take the essence of each chapter and write 2 lines from those chapters. And then you take those 28 lines and put them through the rest of your book. Get rid of the 14 chapters, take the 28 lines, 28 lines. Those are the essence of those chapters, the why those were in there. I did that and I went and read the book. I'm like, it's not gonna work. I was very, in my belief. It was so much better. My book was so much better without those because those were beautiful, but they veered me off course. They weren't, where are we? They weren't with that one slice. So that's another point I want to make. Be open and be neutral. It is our book and it's our passion and it's our writing. And then at some point when we want to gift this to the world, then it's time to go, okay, I am willing and open to create the best story that I can because I've lived the story and that's never going to change. But now it's a story for the world. It's a story to connect and help people. And all kinds of things can happen with your book. But if your ego's in the way and you're holding on too much, then it won't work. So I had to really let go. I burned my book, I cut out 14 chapters, I'm just like, no, but then I realized it's not for me anymore. It's like if an artist puts a piece of art up in a museum, it's no longer theirs. It's for everybody to see and interpret and love in their own way. So you remember you're creating for that. 2 left. Which one? 9 or 10? 10. 10. We're going right to it. Yes. Make sure you are a character in your own story. So this is something we're going to talk about and work on Saturday. Wait. Yeah. Okay. So people read memoirs to connect with you as a character. So you need to create your character. You need to develop your character, okay? Because we know ourselves, we're memoirists, right? I know who I am. Do you really? Do you really know what was going on in your head at that time? What the people around you were thinking? What was going on in your environment? You have to go and research and remember that and find those details. Because who you are now is vastly different than who you are when you were going through whatever it was you were going through. I am sure Janet can attest to that. I can attest to that. I am certainly not that person that I was before. Part of my journey was I was in the Peace Corps in Africa, and I was digging wells in the trains and doing health education in rural Zambia. No electricity, no running water, people dying all around me. It was intense. Very different being in that situation and how I am now in beautiful Bend, Oregon, right? Having this wonderful conversation with all you lovely people. Who I feel right now, very different than then. So you have to put yourself back into that and develop your character like you would in a fiction book. Now, that's not saying you're making things up. You're not. You're just going back in time and really parsing out details about who you are. Develop your character. That's who people are going to connect with. You. They're going on this journey to understand you and what you experienced. So we have this great gift in life. We get this one amazing life. But guess what? We get one. All of you in the room have had so many amazing experiences I'll probably never have. But if you write them and I get to read them, I get to feel like I've gone on those journeys, that I've had that. So we get to experience so many more things because we share them. But we don't connect with it if we don't connect with the person behind it. I'm very parched. Okay, well, I guess I'll have someone call it out, but I think-
Bonus.
Anyone want to say it?
Number 9.
Yes. Be a sculptor. So, writing is about sculpting. We have a chunky, unrefined piece of clay that we start with as a idea, a story, a draft, right? And then how we craft it makes our memoir. What we do with it, how we sculpt it, how we polish it, cutting out those 14 chapters, you know. So it's about neutrality. It's about being open. It's about understanding, like I talked about at the conference in one of my classes, mastering the art of revision. So you write first draft is for ourselves. It's the passion, it's the download, it's the fun, it's all that stuff, right? You have to do it, right? You're compelled for whatever reason. And then now we're writing it for the world. And each iteration gets more refined, right? So we're sculpting and we're taking away. But here's the thing, we also have to know when to stop. Because if a sculptor keeps going, there's not much left, or a painter keeps going, they muddy it and they mess it up. Same with writing, we can keep writing and refining forever, right? Right? How many of you overdone the editing and you're just like, oh boy, yeah, right? I needed to stop. And I'm gonna talk about that on Saturday too, how to know when to stop, right? But here's the thing, we sculpt, but we look for the point of beauty. That's when your intuition and when you know, like you feel like you've done as much as you can. And it feels good. It's not a thinking thing. Because as writers, we're all in our heads way too much, right? I know I am. This one does not want to stay up. Oh, we are in our we are in our heads way too much, right? We need to trust our intuition. Trust what's coming through you. Trust, you know that when you get feedback and you're like, you feel like you should take it, but you can try things out, but trust. So when you sculpt and when you polish, trust yourself and take distance and look at things and go, does this feel, how does this feel? Does this feel right? And you try things, right? And at the end, you want to make sure that it hits that spot for you because you're writing a memo for yourself, first of all, but then you are crafting it for the world. So when I talk about mastering the art of revision, think about the word revision. Revision. You're revisioning something. You're having a new vision. You're seeing it differently. As memoirs, that's really hard because it's our story. So that's where neutrality and sculpting and editing and beta readers and all these things come in. You really want to give yourself that gift of distance and respect and love for your craft. Because it is a craft. And again, like I said, I want to say it again, it doesn't diminish your life story or change your life story, what you're taking out of this book, right? It's two different things. Your life will not ever change. Okay, so there's something called bonus. I wonder what bonus is. Let's see. This one. Done. So have fun. So why are we writing? Why are you writing anything? Why are you writing your memoir? Now, I bet many of you in this room will say writing a memoir is not fun. And I agree in many ways. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done. I mean, I've been through a lot of trauma, a lot of crazy stuff in my life. And writing my memoir, whew, that was brutal in many, many ways. But here's the thing. If we are not having fun as writers, if we are not igniting our passions and being in joy, what's the point? Because writing is a long journey. And so if we are enjoying the journey, then what happens at the end is not a worry because it has been fulfilling. So one time I was teaching at a writer's conference and there was a woman in my workshop and I was doing a really intense emotional workshop that I do. And she was just like, well, I'm just so upset. It's taken so many years to write my memoir. I'm still not done and it's not even close to being published or anything. And I'm frustrated. I said, well, and she wants to get people to understand the stigma behind her mental disorder. So that was why she was writing the book. And so I said, well, have you learned anything writing this memoir? And she goes, yeah, I've forgiven myself. Because of writing the memoir, I've forgiven myself for all the bad things I've done and all the mistakes I made. And I said, well, it wasn't that worth it? Wasn't that worth writing your book? And she started crying and she said, oh my gosh, I never thought of it that way. And is that exactly fun? But yeah, actually it kind of is fun because now she's free. And she had so much joy leaving that workshop and we all cried. And guess what? In 6 months, she had a publisher and within a year, her book was out. She really released the like wanting and the needing to get it published, to sell the book, with all these outcomes, right? She was in the joy and appreciated her journey for what it was. And that was beautiful. So reconnect with what is the reason you're writing your memoir, why you're spending all this time as a writer. Have some fun, bring some joy. This memoir writing, guess what? It's creative writing. If you wanted to just tell a basic story, you would go to your therapist. You would go to your best friend, you would you'd sit there and pour your heart out. You're crafting a story. Don't forget to be creative. You're still telling the truth, but you get to have fun with it. Like a poetic prose, like different techniques. For instance, in my book, I had a lot of doctors, because I've seen a lot of doctors. And I could have called them Mr. Jones, Mr. Smith, Mr. whatever. I was gonna say Jameson, sorry. But I was like, well, because I can't call them their real names. But I was like, you know what? I'm gonna call them based on what I thought of them at the time. So it was Dr. Nosehair, Dr. Hormone, Dr. Loveless, Dr. Genius. It was all these how I thought of them. So it added a little depth and humor and I got creative, right? Now, not everybody's gonna do that, but be creative, have fun, do it because you love writing. And writing is what you believe it is. So I'm gonna talk really quickly about these amazing quotes from some talented authors. So there's a lot of discourse about writing, right? So Nathaniel Hawthorne said, easy reading is damn hard writing. Ernest Hemingway, there is nothing to writing. All you do is sit down at a typewriter and bleed. And lastly, George Orwell, writing a book is a horrible, exhausting struggle, like a long bout of a painful illness. One would never undertake such a thing if one were not driven on by some demon whom one could neither resist or understand. So there's a lot of things in the discourse of writing that make us feel like writing is hard, right? But writing is what we believe it to be. If you believe it's fun and easy and rewarding, it is. If you believe it's hard and scary, then it is. So you get to choose. You get to show up and enjoy the craft and enjoy that you get to tell this story. You get to leave a mark in the world. You get to bridge that gap in humanity like I spoke about and give the gift of what you've experienced in this life to someone else. So thank you so much for your presence today and for your attention. And I appreciate being here. It's been an honor and I thank you so much. I didn't speak about this for like a week. So I had to condense some things, but I'm happy to answer questions. I wanted to leave time, anything about memoir or writing in general, I'm happy to answer. And please don't tell me you have questions. If not, I'll just start talking. Yeah.
When I started writing fiction, I found other names for my character.
Okay.
And that allowed things to flow. Is that helpful in memoir, or should you stay in My First Name's Mary?
Okay.
Because I feel it's a little constricting them. It's not as fun. It's maybe not as relevant.
Do you use your real name?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
When we write, do you use your real name or
That's a good question.
what's the process understanding that?
Yeah, so, okay. So, you can use a pseudonym or you can use in memoir, particularly I'll just talk about.
Yeah, that's all. Yeah,
Okay.
because a memoir is
Yeah.
It makes it more real instead of a story, I guess is my,
Using your real name.
yeah, but
Yeah.
on the other hand, it keeps the facts better.
Yeah, well, okay, so, excuse me. Okay, so I'll give you an example. When I was writing mine, I had some really the worst parts of my life are in that book, right? It was really hard to write, especially when I was still going through some of it, you know. So I wrote with the pen name Maya, and that helped me, right? So everything happened to Maya. Maya. So I had the character, and that was what I had the idea of developing this character. Who was this Maya person? I was looking back at my life and looking at Maya. And so then at the end, when I was ready to publish, I went to my writing group, the same one I talked about earlier, and I said to everybody, I said, so do you think I should put my name on the book, or should I use Maya? They were all very quiet, just like you're all right now. And these are not quiet people, they all have opinions. So I was like, what is happening? Finally, the horror writer in the room said, Cherie, after all the crap you've been through, you're scared to put your name on a book? I was like, all right. So my point of that was, it's more empowering to put your name on the book, that vulnerability, that sticking your neck out, because now I'm saying to you all, I own my story, I'm okay with it, my faults and all, and I see you too, and you have yours. And when we hide behind a pseudonym, and that's okay, there's some reasons you have to protect yourself, right? And that's fine. Or if you're just not able to, that's fine. But my choice was, I want to go as deep and as far as I can go. If I'm doing this, I'm going all the way. And I'm telling you, it's hard to market your book, present your book, do anything if you don't have your real name on it. Think about that. You have to hide behind a name all the time. I have a friend that did her memoir, and her choice was to put another name on it. She struggled because you can't really do interviews well, or she's hiding from her family. So it was tough for her. And so we've talked about that since. So I hope that helps. But, you know, if writing it helps you use a pseudonym, definitely do that. And then see if you need to change it at the end, if you can change it. I hope that helps. Does anyone? Yeah, James.
I don't have much trouble writing about myself. But there are key events in my life when loved ones behave that way. And I struggle to find a way to tell my story honestly without causing harm.
I love this question. Thank you. This is why I love to have some time for questions and answers, because I want to know what's really important to you. I can talk all day. Thank you. Okay, so I'll give you another example, a similar experience when I was in a conference teaching, and someone posed the same question, and they were struggling with writing some really serious stuff about some people in their life, right? So my answer was this, and I'll explain it after I say it. Write everything with love. And here's why I say that. If you have no malintent, if your intention is purely to share the story for the story's sake, so other people can make their epiphanies, other people can have their connections and understand what happened, you're not trying to present your side. You're just presenting the story as a matter of fact. And that's a loving, kind space to do it. Then that's the truth. You are presenting the truth. Then whatever happens from that, that is another situation. But people go with vindictive or revengeful or hate or anger in their memoir writing, and that's understandable because a lot of terrible things have happened to us when we write a memoir, including me. Terrible, terrible things on the hands of other people. And if we write from the wound, right, then it's going to come across that way. But if we write from the scar, then it will be much clearer. So we might have some healing to do as we're writing memoir to be able to get to that place. I worked with a woman last year who was, I met her at a conference, this most amazing woman, and she was writing her own poetry experience of what happened to her. And I asked her what her story was about. And all she said to me was, I was sold as a child. And I just started to cry. And she said, so her first 10 versions of this book were full of hate and rage of just her mom selling her into this and the abusers, many abusers that she had for years and years and years. There was no way she couldn't write from that. But here's the thing, her final version has none of that in there. It just has the truth. And it's beautiful. Because we know, the reader knows what really happened and we will make that judgment. But the author is not making that judgment. The author is healed and it's writing from the scar, not the. I hope that's helpful. Anyone else?
That's a great phrase.
Thank you.
I like that.
Thank you. Yeah.
So, I should, you never assume, but, so the, one that I'm working on happened a long time ago. So what techniques, or if you needed to, or what technique would you advise? If things still, even after so many decades, like still trigger, and it makes it difficult to write because it's like just, even, and it's not coming from hate or revenge or anything like that, but it's actually just, painful.
Absolutely.
And so, and it's just like, then I put it away, it's just like, oh my gosh, but, so I was just curious if you had to go with.
Oh,
Yeah, I assume. Yeah,
every page of my.
exactly.
But yes, I mean, so there's one part of my book that was quite intense and like one of the most difficult things I've ever had to go through. And I had to write it probably about 26 times. And so each time I wrote it, I went layer by layer like an onion, just peeling back the emotions behind it and the reasons that I needed to write it and the feelings behind it. And I just kept presenting myself with the information, meaning here it is, and how can I see it differently? How can I see it differently? And how can I neutralize it? So I guess what I'm saying is, let me give you an example. When I was writing this dark scene of my life, my mentor, Matt, if you're out there, amazing guy. His mentor was Ray Bradbury. So so I've learned a lot what I've learned from him. So I feel very grateful for this. So I was having night terrors when I was writing my memoir during this particular part of my memoir. And I was suffering. I thought, I can't finish this book. It was just so painful. And finally he said to me, well, it was weird. They came in the form of the poltergeist clown. Does anybody know that poltergeist clown with the long, and I don't mind clowns, but this thing freaked me out ever since I was a kid. So it was coming and just lunging at me and strangling me. And just when I was writing this part for weeks and months. And then finally I told Matt, my mentor, and he goes, you know what you need to do? And I said, no, what do I need to do? And he says, talk to it. See, I don't want to go near that thing, but I kept running from it. So I had a lucid moment in my dream and I decided, okay, I'm going to ask the clown what it wants and stand there in my truth. And so that night I went to sleep and there was the clown and I said, hi. I said, what is it you want from me? And it just looked at me, these beautiful, benevolent eyes, not the scary things that I had before. And it says, I just want you to see, because I'm part of you. And that was it. It disappeared and I never saw it again. So my point of that story is I made friends, I befriended my fears. I didn't face them and I accepted them. And so when you're writing about something that's scary or hard, look into it as, what can I learn from this? What is here to teach me? What do I need to know from this that's still not processed?
Well, it's not scary or fear.
Okay.
So no, I'm saying it, things.
So I didn't need to tell that story. Okay.
Yeah,
Hard.
Yeah, just, that takes you back to reliving what happened. And so trying to.
So we don't want to
separate.
relive when we do memoir. That's for the therapist, that's for the best friend, that's for all that. And that can trigger this. So when those come up is what I'm saying, you have to go somewhere else for that. And then you come back to your writing.
I'll have to ponder that.
Yeah, and we can talk more about it. I mean, it's a complex issue. I mean, that could do a whole course just on that.
I have an online question that speaks to that.
Yeah.
You talk about the change in the narrator from the beginning to the end.
Yes.
Kaylee is asking, sometimes I feel like I fully have to be on the other side, be fully transformed, but since it's not a linear path, how can you convey a transformation while still being real that you still don't have all your shit together?
Yeah, well, I mean, life keeps going, right? So I think I talked about this at the conference last week, couple weeks ago. We want to have an armature for our memoir. So an armature is what I talked about in sculpture. It is a metal frame in which sculpting, they add the clay on and they kind of sculpt around it, okay? So it's not a full outline. It's not a detailed, crazy outline, and you're not pantsing, like there's plotting and pantsing, right? You kind of plot and outline so much, and then pantsing is like flying by the seat of your pants, right? Where you're just kind of all over the place. So an armature is kind of these set points in between that help you have an idea and keep you on track. So I'm actually teaching this on Saturday, but what it is the key beats, the key parts of your story. And if you have those key beats, which is kind of where the story kind of starts, where your darkest moment is, and you might still be in it, and where you think it might end. And that helps you with that trajectory. And what's the emotional journey that you're going on, or the question you want the reader to know and answer. So for instance, in my book, the question for the reader of promise is she gonna get a diagnosis or is she gonna die? Is she gonna live? That's the question. So having a question that even you're answering for your own life as you're writing it. What is that question you're trying to figure out? And that's what the reader is trying to figure out too. And it will change. Like it might change. You might write your draft and then like, oh, my theme is really this. For example, I had one of my favorite clients. He was wrongfully imprisoned, something he did not do at all. And he spent many years in prison and he wrote his memoir about that. And I was coaching him and helping him with his memoir and as his editor. And he had it all about being, wrongfully accused. And it was very much about him succeeding after prison and all these things. And then he was also, he was in Southern Baptist, and he was also gay, and in prison. So it was all of these things in his life that he was talking about. So it was all over the place. So when he was writing it, it was like that. It was all over the place. And then we had conversations, and I finally was like, after talking to him, I said, I know what your memoir is about. Because he had said it, and I listened to him, and I reflect back what my clients say. It was all the prisons he put himself in, trying to fit in the Southern Baptist, but in the gay community and, in the business world, because he was an ex-convict, really didn't do anything. And when he had that revelation, but he had written a few drafts before he had that revelation. And then we could go back and finalize and polish the memoir to match that, what he discovered. So sometimes you don't know right away, it's a discovery process. I hope that answered your question. I don't know how much time we have, maybe 1, 2 more?
We've got another kind of a two-parter here.
Oh.
So I'm gonna combine Gail and Catherine's question. What do you think about sitting down to write a memoir and in the rewriting, you'd like to change it to fiction by spicing it up and making it more interesting, provocative?
Oh my God.
Can you pull this off? And then Catherine asks about good resources for developing the craft of fiction writing.
Okay.
So I don't know if those two can.
Okay, just remind me of the second one in a minute.
Right.
Okay, so that first one is very interesting. Did anybody read the book A Million Little Pieces? Was that what it was called? Yeah. That was a supposed memoir, but it was really fiction. And that was a horrible thing. We definitely don't want to do that. You definitely don't want to write a book and you say it's true and it's not. Okay. Now, I think it's so powerful to put our story out there, the truth, and own that. Because fiction writers, guess what? You got to make stuff up, right? You got to make stuff up, and that is not easy to do. And you want to make it sound like it really happened, right? You have the opportunity, you have the plot as a memoirist. You have the characters. You have the theme. You have it all. You just need to craft it. And when people read it, it's so much more powerful, right? Because it happened. How many of you love to see a movie? Oh my God, it was based on a true story. I'm like, oh, I'm in. right? Because you know these people, it really happened to them. But when it's fiction, it's like, well, it's a great story, but you don't feel as much, you know, you don't really truly feel that depth when it's so. My encouragement is if you can keep it a memoir, keep it a memoir, you know, and use the fiction techniques. And you can be creative with your fiction techniques and make it a compelling memoir and a page turner without changing it. I mean, like, for instance, I had exploratory heart surgery. My heart was gonna give out and they said, you're gonna die if you don't do it, so I did it. And my cardiologist came to me before the surgery and I'm lying there and he comes up to me and says, are you ready? I'm like, yes, and anyways, we did the surgery and again, spoiler alert, I survived. And later on, I see him and I give him my book because I was like, thank you, you're the one of the reasons I'm here. And he read it and I said, later on, and he goes, I go, what'd you think? He goes, oh, I love the book. He says, but I said, how did I portray in the book? He says, great. He says, but I never worn a pink tie in my life. Yeah. And I was like, you know, so my point is like, you don't know exactly what people said or what they wore or was it sunny or was it raining? You can create those worlds to match what happened. So you're not making stuff up, but you're creating a story. And people know that's what happens with memoir. But you're still telling the truth. So that's what I would say. And then in regards to fiction techniques.
Catherine says, good resources for developing the craft of fiction writing. You can, if you've got them for nonfiction as well.
Yeah, so I think that would be you can go to my website and contact me, CherieKephart.com, because I can offer you some of that. But I mean, there's a plethora. I would say go to a writer's conference, join a writing group. I mean, there are so many resources for writing. And I am writing I have a new book coming out next year. It's called The Upside of Falling, and you can sign up for that release. It talks about all the stuff I talk about. So I can, you know, talk to you about that too. But there are so many great resources out there. I mean, I can give a list. Basically, I would say go to a writer's conference. You're gonna learn a lot. Who went to the last writer's conference here? Did you learn a lot? Yeah, it's great. Any more? We have one more question. Who didn't? Yes.
I had an epiphany at the end of writing my memoir, and it was an epiphany that kind of shocked me. And I'm thinking, I don't know how. I don't know if the reader should have the epiphany or me.
Oh, both.
Or put it both. Put it in.
Oh, absolutely. Like I said, okay, back to the transformation. The characters are going to transform in our stories, always. The reader wants to transform. You don't ever want to start a book and end without changing, right? You want to feel something. You want to learn something, right? And you as the author, if you're not learning or changing through your memoir writing, you weren't paying attention. Because you will learn and grow and change from this experience. And that is the beauty. So it's a gift to yourself, it's a gift to the world. And there was one more. Do we have time to just did you? I can't see your feet. Yeah.
Oh, I just wanted to know if your surgeon that you book to is Dr. Cheese.
Dr. who? Oh, his name was Dr. Energized. He was just like,
I was like, he had to have some.
he was a electrocardiologist and he was just like, so energy. And I was like,
Thank you. I was curious what his name was.
one in the back.
I tried to sign up. Where's your workshop?
Oh, I'm sure Michael will talk about that afterwards.
So it is booked, but you can be second on the waiting list, and I'll check in with folks. You want to just email me and let me know that you're interested.
So I just want to end with this. Adults make about 35,000 decisions a day. Yeah, I know. That was a decision. You just decided to say, what? Make writing one of them. Thank you so much.
Snacks and coffee, and feel free to mingle, talk with your fellow writers. Enjoy candy, and thank you all for coming. See some of you on Saturday, and then don't forget the anthology release Thursday.
Thank you. Where did San Diego? Oh my gosh, everywhere. Everywhere. I live in Carlsbad. Oh.
Well, that's my second person that started.